your intro's pre-recorded, so we'll just dive right in. Obviously, nothing's live. Can cut anything you want. Want you to love the episode.
Thank you. I'm not worried about it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I feel like you're an open book, like me.
Yeah, try to be. Yeah.
Great.
Pretty much. The only thing I would draw a line is like not telling other people secrets.
Totally. Which is so hard because I'm like, that's where all my trauma comes from.
That's a good one.
You know, I'm like, oh, I'd write a book, but I can't.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yay. Okay, great.
Thanks, Jason.
Mike, welcome to Real Pod.
Thank you.
I wish you guys, on the record, I just made Mike laugh pretty hard. I wish we caught it on recording. We didn't, but.
Maybe we did. Yeah, I think
we
we
did?
have it.
Okay,
yeah.
yay.
Look at the B-roll.
For my brothers who say I'm not funny, I'm going to say, look at that. I made Mike Posner laugh. Thank you so much. I've been looking so forward to this. I've followed your career pretty closely for a long time, and having you on this podcast has been like a dream interview for me because I've deeply respected your whole journey. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for reaching out, and glad we can make it happen.
Of course.
So, I can already tell it's going to be good.
Okay, good. I love that. We have some kind of like random touch points that you don't know of, but I know of. So I'm going to catch you up to speed on our friendship that you didn't know we had.
Okay, great.
So actually the very first time I ever saw you, when I was in middle school and I wanted to be a pop star, I attended Dave Stroud's music camp.
Oh, yeah.
And you like stopped by.
Yeah. Didn't I sing a song or two there?
I don't know if I was in the room that you sang in, but I remember you like dropped by because we all knew that you guys had worked together a little bit. So that was
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's my vocal coach.
He's amazing.
Still is, yeah.
I dropped off. I didn't quite have the chops, but it was fun. It was a fun experience. I know I use my voice in a different way, right?
Yeah.
But so that was the first time. And then I was at Delilah for New Year's in 2021. There's like a guest performer. I'm like, okay, we don't know who it's going to be. And it was you. And you killed it.
Thank you.
It was unreal.
I remember that being kind of a tough room, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I think you were one of like 9 people.
You don't remember like the 3 drunk girls like screaming every lyric? That was us.
I'm glad. I think, there was like a small nucleus of people at that very fancy club that seemed to give a shit that I was singing. And then beyond that, your orbit, it dropped off pretty severely.
That's wild.
You're like, looking at me like this.
It's so funny to think about it from your perspective because I am literally like, that's one of the most fun New Year's I've ever had.
Oh, it was fun.
I mean, you were unreal. And Jacob on the sax. Yeah. So I love when you do that rendition. So I actually went up to him and I was like, I want you to know that like all the versions that you accompany are my favorite.
Yeah. Jacob's, he's a star.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of pressure off me performing with him. For your viewers, he's my he plays saxophone with me in the band.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's like a front man. So
do you like doing those intimate types of settings?
When you're on the stage, you can see the whole room. So I could see, these people aren't listening, or this person's really into it, or that person just walked out, and
Wow.
Yeah.
And are you at a place now where that doesn't like affect you too much and you can vibe with it, or is it? I can imagine that that's hard.
Going in, because that's a private show, so it's not open to the public, and it's not full of your fans. Mm-hmm. So if I play my own show, everyone there is going to know the words. It's going to have a different vibe. And with private shows, you never know. So they could be really into it. The vibe in the room could be welcoming. It could be very sterile. Sometimes you play it for a company or a sports team, and the people could not be into it at all. So my job is just to do a great job no matter what. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times also I will open up for artists with a larger following than me. So I've done tours where I opened up for Justin Bieber, or I did one where I opened up for Nick Jonas and Demi Lovato. And I'd walk out on stage, those shows, and often people are like, okay. But I have 30 minutes. And by the end of that 30 minutes, if I can have them go from, okay, to on their feet like this, that's success. Yeah. Yeah. It's a different skill set. Mm-hmm. Right. It's
almost a good life lesson for everyone. Like, you can't control how people are going to meet you in a room or what they're carrying or their energy, but you can say, I'm going to go here, I'm going to be myself, I'm going to give my all, and that's the most I could do.
Yeah. So when you walk into a room like that, you don't resent the audience for not being more into it than they are. That's your job, to get them into it. And so that's how we approach it, and we do a pretty good job of it. Usually we can win people over.
I feel like I've experienced like Mike Posner both on the radio with the top hits and like at the concerts, but then also, you know, you walked across America and you're leading meditations on the internet. You're so multifaceted, and I feel like you've had a transformation of sorts, and I don't know if you would call it like enlightenment or an ego death or like a spiritual awakening, but I was curious like how you describe the trajectory.
Yeah, well, my ego definitely is not all the way dead yet. I'll tell you that. I'm still working on it. But I would say a transformation for sure, but always transforming, you know. And there's so many great resources on the internet. There's all these podcasts you can watch and these great books you can read. And, you know, some of them that have affected my life, Eckhart Tolle, Tony Robbins,
oh my God,
David Goggins, Abraham Hicks, Wayne Dyer, the list goes on. So many great resources, and those are just a few that pop in my head. But the best teacher of all is life itself. So if you really want a tailor-made, one-on-one personal lesson from the best teacher, just look at where your life hurts, and that's where the lesson you're supposed to learn is. Mm-hmm. So my life hurts sometimes. It's to this day, you know, not in the same ways, but I'm being called to learn different things at this stage in my life. And so I definitely, you know, as tempting as it is to say I'm an enlightened being, I'm exactly where I am now, which is where I am now. And the more I can be honest about that, I think is good. Yeah.
I'm so happy you mentioned Eckhart, because I was going to ask you if you were familiar with his work, because it seems like you would be. I geek out about him all the time. My best friend and I did we read A New Earth, and then we did chapter breakdowns. It is life-changing. And then I want to run to everyone and say, you have to read this. And I'm like, but that's not what we're supposed to do, right? But he's been hugely impactful for me as well. So as far as where you are today, I kind of want to understand maybe the climax that led up to initiate that change. So was your goal always to make it as an artist, or did you think, I'll dabble in this because I'm talented, but I'm going to focus on school and maybe take a traditional path?
Yeah, so I actually started writing music when I was 8 years old. Oh, wow. At 18, I chose to go to college, and I thought that music would be a beautiful hobby. I knew I loved it, and I thought I would have a normal job. I even thought I might have a job in the music industry, but I never thought being an artist could be my career, because it just seems so hard. So I never had that frame of myself. And that changed when I was 18 and I met a friend of mine who changed my life. That was Big Sean. He's a rapper in Detroit, and I became friends with him, and I started doing beats for him a little bit and became a member of his crew. We had a crew called Finally Famous, and they inducted me into the crew, and then I went to school, and I can't remember, it was a year or 2 years, Sean signed a record deal. And so my friend, my buddy who used to come over my mom's house, now he had a record deal. And I went, oh my gosh, if he could do that, I could do that too. And so then the frame of myself switched from this being impossible, 1 in a million, to this is probable, this is going to happen. And once that internal belief changed from this will never happen to this is definitely going to happen, reality caught up, and it only took about 8 months. I got offered a record deal myself.
I love how you just described that. It's so true. If we're telling ourselves, oh, this isn't possible for me, subconsciously, we're not going to seek those opportunities, you know? So then the moment you do think, oh, hey, I could do this, the creativity starts flowing and the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, like you said, sometimes the opportunity's right there, but if you don't have the frame of it being worthwhile, it'll look like a waste of time. And
because you're at Duke, which is a really prestigious school, so congrats on that, by the way, were your parents or your family like, oh, we want you to focus on studies? Were they supportive?
They were supportive and skeptical at the same time. So my parents, there's that great quote, you know, success has 1,000 fathers and failure is an orphan, right? So I like to tell myself the story sometimes. We talk about ego already.
Yeah.
That all my successes I made happen on my own. And it's really just a lie. You know, my mom tells a story that when I was 2 years old, before I can remember, she took me in the yard and the birds were chirping in Michigan. And she said I was trying to sing the notes back that they were doing. And so she said she always tried to nurture that. So they paid for me to learn the drums, and I'd go to the studio sometimes in the hood in Detroit. They drive me and take me there, and I'm recording this rap music they don't understand, but they were supportive. Simultaneously, when I remember I said to my mother, and I love my mother more than anything, I said, I'm going to get a record deal and be a professional recording artist. Now, mind you, I was the most shy child of all time.
Really?
I spent probably 60%, if not more, of my childhood in a basement alone, just making music. And I was really quiet, especially with my parents. She always said I would answer one word. You know, how are you doing today? Good. How was school? Good. What'd you learn? Nothing. Right? And so when I looked at her and said, I'm going to be a professional recording artist, she looked at me like, what?
That's not tracking for
yeah,
me.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But by that time, I knew I was gonna do that.
And was Cooler Than Me the song that essentially put you on the map and changed everything?
Yeah, in some ways. There's another funny story is I was in finals week. Was it sophomore year or junior year? I can't remember. And my career had started to take off in the college world. So students knew me. Even at different campuses, I was becoming well known, but not in the larger public. And I garnered the attention of some record labels. And so I flew to New York once or twice and took some meetings with record labels there. And then I flew back, and I was in finals week, and I'm writing a paper. And my manager at the time, Daniel Weissman, calls, and he said, you have to go back to New York. I said, I can't go back to New York, man. It's finals week. I got to finish this paper. So you got to go back. Jay-Z wants to meet you. I said, don't mess with me. He goes, I'm not. He goes, you got to go back. I said, okay.
This reminds me of I think there was a time, actually, we were talking a little bit about Gary Vee before we started recording, but I think the legend, he came to speak at SC. And I remember I had a small class, and like, you're just not allowed to miss it. And I was like, what is the point of being this age and having cool experiences if I feel like I have to go to this class that I know in my heart is not going to move the needle in any way? Whereas like going to this seminar, like, could move the needle in a big way in my life. Now that we're adults, it's like, I don't even remember that class that I was so afraid to miss. You know, I'm sure you missing that final test, like, look, everything's fine, you know?
No, it worked out. It was a paper, so I finished it later.
Okay.
Just did kind of a worse job than I would have.
Yeah. As you started to kind of receive some of that traditional fame and be on the radio and all that starts to happen, and you're getting these cool phone calls and these celebrity meetings, how did having a normal college experience impact you? Because a lot of famous artists they don't go to college. So I'm wondering if you felt like more grounded because you had been in a fraternity and you knew what it was like to like fill up your own gas. I don't know, you know?
Well, I think my fraternity probably did more damage than good in a lot of ways. But a lot of lifelong friends as well. If I was comparing that to if I would have gotten famous 4 years earlier, when I was 17 or 18, I'm glad I had that time. I think it was good for me. And my job was really good for me. I was really shy. And this job forced me to face a lot of those fears. You know, walking on the stage to perform is scary. You're thinking, oh my gosh, if I was a real pro, I wouldn't be feeling this right now. I mean, it's terrifying.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it's terrifying. I mean, even if you know you're great, it still takes courage to walk on a stage. And perform and sing, and you know, it got me out of my shell a lot. And then I was forced to meet, not forced, but as part of my job, I'd meet tons of people, and I'm talking to tons of people, and I'm just out of my dungeon, you know, because I spend so much time alone making the music. That's the thing a lot of people don't realize about musicians or artists, because they see the artist when they're outward facing. They spent a lot of time in solitude so they could give that gift to the world and to themselves, but also to the world.
What you said about imposter syndrome was making me think, because when we see these famous people or these people who have all this success we want to have, we look at them as like, they're so incredible, they're almost like not human. So that when you eventually in your own life get near that or get that, the imposter syndrome comes from, but I'm flawed and I'm a human and I suffer and I'm not totally perfect. So, you know, it's just like this interesting loop of, we think if you get something, you have to be a perfect human, but no one is a perfect human. So it's like this repeating cycle of people who get to the top and then say it wasn't everything that they thought it would be.
Yeah, I could just remember when it dawned. I'm what a mentor of mine calls me pigheaded. He goes, sometimes, Mike, you need to learn the lesson yourself. You can't just get the advice. You know, something like money doesn't buy happiness. It's like, yeah, I knew that, but then I had to go try to make money and get famous to realize it wasn't going to get me happiness.
When I Took a Pill in Ibiza came out, which I feel like is essentially the song that encapsulates what you're describing right now, I was playing volleyball at USC, and that was my dream. Like, we're winning the Pac-12, like I'm playing, this is everything I've ever wanted, but I felt so lonely and I was very existential and just really lost. And so when that song came out, I felt like my heart literally felt so seen, because it was talking about getting what you wanted, but then it not feeling the way you'd hoped and just being really confused. And that song just like really hit me in a different way. And I want to know what inspired you to be so vulnerable like that, because we don't see songwriting like that a lot, and we especially don't see it from male artists.
Yeah, thank you for that's beautiful. It makes me feel proud. Yeah, I was in the studio one night with a friend named Jake Owen. He's a great country artist. And Jake was playing me songs. I was playing him songs. We were showing each other what we were working on in that season of our lives. And I played him a song that I'd written, not Ibiza, a different song. And he said, Mike, what inspired that? I said, it's about a girl, and then I mixed her story up with another girl, and then I just kind of made some of it up. And he looked at me and he said, well, why don't you just tell the truth? I said, what? Because I was floating around this petri dish of West Hollywood, and I'd write songs with all these songwriters, and no one really seemed that concerned with telling the truth. People seemed really concerned with writing hits. Mm-hmm. And so his comment struck me. He goes, yeah, there's writers that just tell the truth. You know that, right? So that night I wrote I Took a Pill in Ibiza, and it flowed out very easily. It was very inspired. I remember it was in a notebook and having the melodies and singing them into the iPhone. And I think another thing worth noting is I wrote it alone. It's very rare for a song in the charts to have one writer. Yeah. In fact, someone told me a stat about myself, which I guess I'll braggingly share with you, that I guess in the last, I don't know, was it 10 years or something? There's only been 2 songs, I think. I don't know if it was in the top 10 or over 1 billion streams, some threshold. There was only 2 songs that had one writer, and Ibiza was one of them. And there's something to be said for that, because one, it's scary to tell the truth when there's other people in the room. You kind of want to be in this cocoon of solitude so you can just let it flow out. And 2, there's this inclination, especially among songwriters in LA, to write something universal. And I think they really miss the point a lot of the times, which is I've brought lines like that into studio sessions. I took a pill in Ibiza, show Avicii. They go, we can't use that because no one will relate to it.
Right.
We need to write something universal. So they would try to change a line like that to, I took a pill in the club.
To show my friends I was cool.
Or something, you know? Yeah. And something to make it more universal. Or it's like, you would probably change pill. Like I drank a beer and all of a sudden it's not the truth anymore. Mm-hmm. So I've always pushed back against this, and I've had a lot of friction with songwriters and producers in LA. That's why I like, work with my people and then work a lot alone. Because I think that ethos, that philosophy of writing for universality is flawed. And you're the proof, because I wrote this thing that happened in my life. And you didn't go to Ibiza. You were in college. Mm-hmm. You didn't you were playing volleyball at UCLA. Sorry, USC.
It's okay.
Excuse me. That was offensive. My apologies to all the Trojans and the Bruins.
Yeah.
But you felt the same emotion that I was feeling. So the universality isn't in the surface level of the lyric. It's in the feeling underneath.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, Mike, I would listen to it before games. Actually, if you want to know how much of a nerd I am, I would listen to the YouTube version because Jacob played sax in it and it was like my favorite. You like performed it one time.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I think the beautiful thing about music is I
had that with songs, by the way.
You what?
There's one of my favorite Springsteen songs, Atlantic City.
Yeah.
He played at this festival in 2013 or something. That live
right,
version.
There's a certain version.
That for live versions. Crazy.
But music, like, it elicits this feeling, like you just remember something you can't even put words to when you hear a song. Like it's connected to a memory or a smell or your childhood or a feeling, like something that you can't articulate. And I think it's like this invisible connection. So I mean, music has always been like something I love, and that's why I have such an affinity for really deep, special songs. But to your point about the lyrics being not this universal experience, and then the song was such a hit, is it weird for you to see people, like, I'm sure there's a population of people who really get it. And then I'm sure there's a population of people who just sing, like my husband, I'll be like, do you know what you're singing or the lyrics? He's like, no, I just like the melody. Like, he doesn't really know what's going on. Yeah. So what was it like for you to see such widespread appreciation and love for that song?
It was awesome. It's surreal. And the irony didn't escape me. It was a song that said, I'm just a singer who already blew his shot. I get along with old timers because my name's a reminder of a pop song people forgot. So to write a song about blowing your shot as an artist, your career's over, and then to have that song give you another shot and reinvigorate your career is actually pretty funny. Mm-hmm. So I was just at that time trying to enjoy the ride more, be grateful more, enjoy the irony. And for me, I'm not Drake or Adele. I don't have 50 number one hits. I've been blessed that I have 5 songs that have become hits. 3 of them are songs I wrote for other artists. So it's just special for me when I have a song, because I don't write for that. I write the truth, or try to, right? I try to keep my ego out of the room. Sometimes I fail, but when something catches on like that, it's a blessing. And I understand that some people, like, this is a song about sadness, I guess, or a reckoning, or existential reckoning. And I understand that the song got remixed and some people are just partying to it, and that's fine with me. It's like whenever you have anyone listening to your music, let alone a billion people, it's just something to be grateful for.
Definitely.
And pays my bills to this day.
True. You've talked about how the songs you released while they were hits and really successful, the trajectory from Cooler Than Me, like it kind of was trending downwards, even though songs like Please Don't Go were still so great. And at the time, that was maybe viewed as a failure, whether it was to the record label or to you. I'm curious if you could talk about your perspective on failure and what it was like when you were first taking off in the industry and how you look back at it now. Because even when you say, oh, I don't have 50 hits, it's like, but some people have 0.
Yeah,
you know?
Most people have 0.
Yeah, most people.
For sure. For sure.
At the time when your record label was saying, oh, not good enough, were you buying that? Like, oh, it's not good enough.
Wholeheartedly.
So when did that switch for you?
I guess, I'm 23, so it's like my first Cooler Than Me was this college hit. Then I signed a record deal, and it was my first song with the label, and it blew up. It was huge. And so I just thought, oh, that's what happens when I put songs out. I'm 1 for 1. So the next one will be like that too, and then the one after that. And they weren't. They got incrementally less popular each song I put out, all the way down to the point where the label kind of stopped putting my songs out altogether. And I was in record label Purgatory. In the industry, it's called being shelved. So you're under contract, you're writing music, but the label is not really, they have no obligation to release the music because it might cost more to release it than it would to just keep you under contract. So, I felt like an immense failure at the time. I was immature and I got really used to being famous and popular. It didn't take me that long to get used to it, and then that slowly just stopped being the case. And it felt scary and embarrassing. People ask me, they ask, do you still do music? That was like the worst. It actually makes me sad to think about it now, because I was working so hard. And that's when I started working with Dave, and I worked with my piano teacher, Norman Henry Mamie, and I was just writing so many songs. Like, I'd write a song every day, and a year, I'd write at least 100 songs. And they weren't coming out. And to have people go, hey, man, do you still do music? And it's like a year ago, I'm like on the top of the charts. And it's like, it was heartbreaking. So, and it was one of the... I dealt with a lot more heartbreaking things than that after that in my life, but I had a pretty privileged life up until that point where everything was smooth. It's like I went to Duke University. Before I got out of Duke, I already had a record deal. Yeah. Then my first song's a hit. It's kind of like going really well. And so that was the first time where I had to, it wasn't going well. And so it was hard for me, for sure. You asked about the evolution of my perspective on failure. I had a high school basketball coach, Bill Norton. He just passed away, rest in peace. And he used to always say, shooters shoot. Meaning, if you're a winner and you just shot that basketball 30 times and you missed 30 times, if you're a shooter, you get it, you shoot. You don't pass, And so I would remember those low times. It's like, shoot or shoot. So I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna take this time. I have time off. So maybe I could use it to really learn how to sing better. Start working with Dave. Maybe I could learn how to play instrument. I didn't play instruments then. So I learned to play guitar. I learned to play piano. And shoot or shoot. I kept writing songs. And I started to change my thoughts, right? We talked about frames earlier. For a while, I was thinking everyone else's thoughts. I'm washed up. My career's over. I'm a one-hit wonder. And I said, I got to stop thinking this way. Shoot or shoot. So I got my notebook out, and I'd write, Mike Posner will win the Song of the Year Grammy. And I'd write that 15 times. I'd go on walks where I'd say that to myself. And I felt stupid, but after a while, I started to believe myself. And shoot or shoot. I kept writing songs. And one of the songs I wrote was, I Took a Pill in Ibiza. But it wasn't even about that. I was just getting better. I wrote other great songs during that period. Buried in Detroit, one hell of a song.
So good. I love that one.
Thank you. Yeah, so all these, and I was just focused on my craft. people would say, hey, did you know Ibiza was going to be a hit? I said, no, but I knew it was good. I knew that me as a writer was proud of it. And so I was just doing my thing. And things just started to fall in order. It took years to get out of that record deal, get a new manager, write this song, get the songs recorded, get the right producer, get them out, and then it still didn't work. I won't say it didn't work, but it wasn't a hit. I put Ibiza out, the original version, and I say, if you got love, give it away. So I got in an RV with my buddies. I was kind of disheartened with the music industry as a whole. I said, let's do a different kind of tour. I said, we call it the Ninja Tour. Got in an RV and we just tweet, hey, we're going to play a show tonight at Griffith Park, 5 p.m. Come, it's free. And I just show up with my guitar. And I wasn't too famous to where too many people would come, and I wasn't not famous enough to where no one would come. It'd be like 50 to 200 people, and I could just play with no microphone. And I went around the country doing that. I can't remember how many we did, maybe 20 shows, all over the country, from Florida to San Francisco to Ohio, drive around just playing for free for people. And then these amazing guys in Norway remixed my song, and it starts flying up the charts.
Did you know they were going to remix it?
Yeah, the record label asked my permission. They said, can we get a remix done? Because I think they knew my country versions, weren't going to get on the radio. I said, yeah, of course. Because I do remixes of other people. I love remixes.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah. They sent me the song back. At the time, I was living in my van. I'm listening to a lot of country, listening to Bob Dylan. I'm not listening to electronic music at all at that time. I was just really deep. Not because it's bad. I was just really deep in this rabbit hole of singer-songwriters and was developing my skills. So I listened to it one time. I said, yeah, sounds good. It's approved. Put it out. They put it out. And then I get calls a couple weeks later. Yo, it's blowing up in Norway. It's blowing up in Amsterdam. I'm like, whoa. And I started to learn more about manifestation like that. It's like you switch the frame, you still believe it, you see it, but then you let it go.
Mm-hmm. We think we can predict what our plan is going to look like. But I think where people get caught up and maybe limit themselves is they decide, this is exactly how my life needs to unfold. Emotionally avoidant in the past with relationships and with vulnerability. And obviously now it seems like you're in a completely different place. I think a lot of people can relate to not knowing how to communicate their feelings or open up to someone and not be scared of what happens next. Why do you think you were emotionally avoidant in the past, and how did you overcome it?
I was scared, and I was trying to protect myself from pain, because if you don't let anyone close, they can't hurt you. And I had past relationships that were painful to me because I wasn't mature enough to handle the feelings I was feeling at the time. And I'd look at other people's relationships and my family and go, oh, all relationships are like that. I don't want to experience that pain that I saw other people feel. So I said, if I never open myself up to it, I'll never get hurt. Now, I didn't consciously say that. I just noticed a pattern. After 10 years, I'm like, hey, I haven't had a girlfriend in 6 years. Maybe there's something there I should check out about myself, So that's why I think I instilled that programming in myself. And I think I started instilling it when I was young. Maybe some of it's generational. But when you turn 18, you're an adult. So even if you put the program in when you were under 18, now you're responsible for it. Mm-hmm. It's still scary to me. I think relationships, especially intimate ones, are scary because you become, in a healthy way, interdependent. Not dependent, but interdependent on another human being. And that's where all the juice of life is, all the beauty of life is. And it's the same thing in a business. Like you have a podcast, like you're interdependent on the people you work with. If they just completely screw up or drop the ball, it affects you. So you're vulnerable in doing anything with other human beings. So I just realized like I don't want to die alone. I did a Tony Robbins conference, and he said, "What's one thing you want to change?" It was this. What happens in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years if you don't change this? I saw this vision of myself, and it's like someone knocks on my door. I open up the door. I have 6-pack abs. I'm smiling, a fake smile, and I'm all alone, and there's no one else in the house. And I'm like 55. And I was like, oh no, man, I don't want that to be me. You know, the guy like working out, and I'm like, and it's all good, you know? And it's like, I'm still afraid of relationships, you know? So it's still scary, but these things are skills. You know, you talk about opening up, communication. So I said, I learned all this other stuff. I learned how to play piano. I learned how to play the guitar. I learned how to sing from Dave Stroud. So I can learn how to communicate too. It's not rocket science. It's a skill. And just like these other things, I learned how to perform. It's scary before I go on the stage, but when I go up there and I do my thing, it's nothing but beauty. So why would this be any different? So I just started to learn the skills. I read Nonviolent Communication. I took a Nonviolent Communication course online.
What's nonviolent? I mean, obviously not being
Oh,
violent.
it's a great book. You'll love this. It's a book by a guy from Detroit named Marshall Rosenberg. And basically it's a formula for communicating. And it works really well when you're, I guess, upset. Because, yeah, it's easier to be sloppy with your communication when you're upset. At least it is for me. I think for most people. The formula is fourfold: observation, emotion, need, and request. So for example, let's say I wanted you to use a coaster. I don't, but let's say this was a super baller table.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to use a coaster there. This is a stupid example, but it's, hey, Victoria, I'm observing that you put your glass down on the table there. Right? So it's an observation of facts. It's not saying you always do this, or you don't respect things. No, it's just what's right here, right now, what you can see, smell, taste, or I'm observing that you put your glass on the table. I'm feeling angry because I really have a need for respect. So that the emotion's anger, because I really have a need for respect in the things that and my possessions. And so I'm wondering if you'd be open. Here's the request. I'm wondering if you'd be open to putting a coaster under your glass. So it's just a dumb example, but
no, I love that so much.
Yeah, and it gives you, because at the end of the day, you have a request, and it gives you a way to ask for what you want in a way that you're most likely to actually get it. Remember, a request, though, is a request, not a demand.
Yes.
So you could say, in this framework, you could say no. And I have to say, okay, I have to get that need for respect somewhere else. So that's it. It works really well in relationships. Yeah. So I learned that, and then I went to a relationship retreat as a single guy to just learn more skills.
Do you feel like you have to be protective of like who you are? Are you ever worried that people's intentions are, I don't know, not genuine? That's probably be tough to let go of.
I feel like I can tell. I know sometimes there's people more clever than me, but I don't live my life guarded that way, because when I do, it just sucks to be me. And I'm not that famous, you know, where I can't walk around. I have some friends like that, but I can go to the grocery store. I might get recognized a few times, but
yeah,
we can have a pleasant interaction. It's not so much that I can't do things. And so, yeah, I actually welcome those interactions.
And I guess that's what we talked about, right? Like if you were to say, oh, yep, I'm going to keep a big wall up, like that's like, yes, is there a situation where you're going to come across someone who's not genuine? Yeah, it's probably going to happen. But if you try to avoid that at all costs, you're also going to limit yourself to meeting the 8 out of 10 people who are going to be genuine and could have really profound impacts on your life, you know? So it's like, we all have to know we're probably going to be hurt. We're going to be let down or disappointed at times, but the payoff or what we're worthy of receiving is so much more important than never opening ourselves up to that, you know?
Yeah. And in my case, it's almost never. You know, the percentage of slimy interactions to interactions is 0.0000001. You know, I learned that walking across America. Most people are just so great.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny when you're an artist, you do normal things, and people give you a lot of credit for it. Like, you show up on time, like, I have never met a recording artist that has been early to an interview. Wow, you're amazing. It's like, am I? I just showed up here to do my job on time.
Yeah. I think it's definitely like not great when people just decide that rules don't apply to them.
The bar is so low for pop star.
Yeah. No, literally.
Like, you're so nice,
and,
Mike.
And there's a power imbalance that, like, if I was interviewing, you know, someone who I felt like I'm lucky that they gave me the time and they were late, like, I'm probably going to accept that and act like it's fine because I need, or I'm hoping that we're going to have this, you know, experience. But then it's like feeding the ego of like, oh, I can just treat people however I want and they should be lucky. Like, so it's funny, like, everyone kind of plays a role in that. But yeah, at some point people think the rules don't apply, but I don't, that's obviously not how you live, and that's not how I would.
I try not to. We talk about that ego comes in sometimes. Yeah. For example, I have an assistant. He's amazing. And sometimes I'll notice he'll forget to do something, which is rare, but I'll see it like in my house, a thing he's supposed to take out or a letter he's supposed to mail. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? And I'm like, I shouldn't have to do this. And I'm like, no. You should have to do this.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's the wrong,
right.
That's the wrong way to start thinking about your life. Everything that isn't done for me should be done for me. Like, maybe he forgot to do something, and that's okay. We can address it, but like, let's not indulge in that. That's the wrong way to go.
Yeah, no, and that's really great self-awareness. As we wrap this up, I have one final question for you about how you think about your identity. And I know if we're leading into our Eckhart work, you know, it's I am, and, you know, we don't need to label and we don't need to describe it. I know that in theory, but my brain just really craves like being black and white. And sometimes I struggle with, like, I was a volleyball player. Now I'm not. I'm a podcaster, but I'm also, you know, a founder of a nonprofit, but I'm also a wife, and I like to talk about silly things like makeup. Like, sometimes my brain, it's hard to compute. How do you think about your identity when you're so multifaceted and you are an artist and you are a teacher and you are a content creator and you are a motivational speaker?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Tony Robbins, one of my favorite teachers, he said identity is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. So you gotta be careful what you put after those words, I am. And I subscribe to the Eckhart theory, which is behind all those roles that we play at any given time in our life, I believe I am pure consciousness. So I'm the consciousness that's looking down on Mike. I don't believe I'm Mike Posner. I'm the consciousness that gets to move this guy, Mike Posner, around and try to do a good job of that. And so that's what I believe I truly am. I believe I'm connected to life, connected to earth, connected to divine, and I believe everyone else is too. So at the end of the day, I'm looking at somebody else, like you. I'm looking at myself. Now, do I walk around in touch with that feeling 24 hours a day? Not even close. You know, I have my daily meditation practice and my time outside in nature. So I try to ground in that. But then, yeah, there's all these social roles. And they're roles. It's a good metaphor to use, like a stage. So for me, you know, right now I'm writing a book, and I'll lean into a role, which is also fictitious. I'll say I'm one of the best writers of my generation. I'm here to inspire the world with my book, and I'll say that to myself before I start writing. Is that identity true? I don't know. It's a powerful one that serves me for those 4 hours that I'm working on my book. But then, you know, in January, my book's going to be done. So am I a writer? you know, when I'm on stage, or my writer when I'm with my girlfriend. No, I'm a boyfriend, right? They're all different roles and they all expire. Mm-hmm. So the answer is, I think you have both, right? You like in the Bhagavad Gita, it's like you have to honor your duty in this incarnation. So you are a mother. No, mother? Wife.
No, wife.
You are a wife. You're a podcast host, right? You're a leader. You're all these things, but you're also none of them.
Right.
At the same time. So it's not like, and you're not doing this, but it's not like you show up. You have the podcast and you're like, no, I'm pure consciousness.
Yeah.
I'm not going to show up. Right? So we have to honor our incarnation, our roles, what life calls from us. And at the same time, be looking at it like none of it matters. We're connected to everything. It's all good.
Okay, so it sounds like we're kind of in the same boat. Like I'm going in and out of it all the time.
Yeah, in and out, and you should. I think that's healthy.
Yeah.
You know, very healthy.
Thank you so much, Mike.
This was fun.
This was so fun. Yeah, it was amazing. I love talking to you, and congratulations on Beautiful Day. It's such a beautiful song that I think is going to save and help a lot of people. So I want to say congrats on that, and it was an honor.
It was really fun.
Thanks.
Thank you. It's awesome to speak with you, and I can tell you love what you do, and so this was just a really good experience for me.
Thanks.
Yep.
Me too.
You
Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.